commemorate those who were lost.
The War Memorial has very recently been relocated this year to the cross in Mossbone, as it is much more accessible, visible, and more people can access the memorial services. Our war memorial is built of stone in an obelisk form, which means it's a tall, thin structure on a pedestal, three based with a pyramid shape on top, although ours is a cross. There's a dedication at the bottom of the colour here. The World War I names are National, the World War II names are steps. Each year there's a memorial service which is well attended staff at Annbank Primary School to remember those who gave their lives to be safe.
Sophia is going to read my fantasy story.
I'm Sophia and I'm going to be reading Indy's story. When World War II was happening, my great-grand Jessie was just a little girl, the same age as I am now, 5. Her life was a whole lot different back then to how I live my life now. There was a war happening between the Allies, which is Great Britain, America, France and Russia, and the Axis, which is Germany, Italy and Japan. When my great-grand was just a little girl, she lived in Maybole before moving to Moscow. She lived in her flat with her mum and siblings. Her flat was on the main street, and just across from the road where she lived was one of the prisoner of war camps. She remembers the men in these camps were housed by German and Italian prisoners, and they would wave and shout hello to them when we were outside playing or heading to school. She also remembers that the prisoners were not allowed to come up to the fence and had to stay far back. They were never allowed to have conversations with them, and she recalls hearing them singing to keep themselves entertained, she assumed. And they remained here until the war ended. The prisoner of war camp didn't look very happy. My great-grandfather, Willie McBurney, my great-great-papa, was deployed to India during the 6 years of the war as part of the Royal Scots. And although he wasn't a soldier, he worked as a shoemaker and lived in the army camps, mending and sorting all the soldiers' boots. Her mum would keep in touch via letters. However, she didn't see or hear from her dad until the war had ended. He'd seen some horrific things while serving in India and rarely spoke of this and how this affected him. As a child growing up during World War II, she didn't feel really affected by the effects of the war, but did have a sense of nervousness knowing and hearing of bombs and grenades going off in surrounding areas, such like Glasgow and Edinburgh. As a child of 5, she didn't have many worries, but could remember her mother and older siblings being fearful and on edge. She remembers still being allowed to play and go to school. However, she had to grow up more quickly than I have to. As her father was deployed, her mother had to work and her older siblings had to leave school early to take on jobs. And she had to fend for herself a lot of the time. There were air raid shelters built to protect the locals. However, she never needed to use it, thankfully. One thing she does remember that affected her family and most other families were the lack of availability in food items, particularly fruit and veg, and what they could get their hands on had to be rationed so it would last. This even continued long after the war had ended. A lot has changed from then, and I am lucky and I am still able to go to bed at night and not worry of things like these. I still enjoy playing with my Barbies and having a full tummy every night. I feel very lucky that my daddy gets to stay with me and my family, and I can see him every day. I've added a picture of my great-great-papa for you to see. And that's Indy's story.
Thank you for listening to my story.
We've come to visit you today to ask you some questions about what it was like living during the war and the VE Day celebrations.
Firstly, thank you so much for having us. How are you feeling today?
Very happy to see you.
Was it difficult to get food during the war?
It was all rations.
Food was
It was all rations, you had rations.
Rations.
But what you could buy to feed yourself. You had a ration book and there was a wee bit, this for whatever, different things, food to eat. And once that was done, that was you done.
Were you affected by the
Oh yes, very much so. Very much so. Well, if you didn't have the money to get the rations in the first place, sometimes your mum and dad hadn't any money. My mum and dad at the time didn't have any money at all.
My family was totally different from this family. I lived in a village. My father was a tailor, so I had no bother with clothing or anything like that. And we grew up usually all our own food. We grew our own potatoes. I was lucky. I was in the country. My mum can always get hold of eggs. 10.
Somebody gave you one of them.
And your mum puts it in a pot and gives you, what would you get? What would your mum give you for your breakfast that morning?
Probably boiled egg.
That's right, a boiled egg. Oh, or maybe if she's very adventurous, a fried egg.
Yeah.
Or a poached egg. You can do a lot. Yes, you can do a lot of poached eggs. That's a favourite breakfast, isn't it?
How did you spend time during the war? Did you ever play with your friends or anything?
You ever?
Like, did you ever play with your friends or anything during
Of
the time of the war?
I was a wee girl and our friends were wee girls. What would wee girls play with? Dolls. Dolls. That answer. Played with our dollies.
Did any of your family members have to leave to join the war? If so, what service were they in?
For me, yes, I had likes of male cousins and female. Some of the girls went into the women's army. I'll tell you what we had for quite a few. I remember where I lived was in the country. So there were lots of girls from farms. And the girls, in order to do their part during the war, joined what was called the land army.
That's right.
And they went to work with farmers in the land, you know, and worked in the farm and helped the farmer, because the farmer's son may have gone away to the army or the navy, and the farmers needed help.
So they needed
To the girls.
people to help them.
Anything boys can do, girls can do better.
How did you feel when the war was happening?
Like, what was going through your mind?
It was just something that was happening that we had to get through. You don't know what's going to happen this afternoon, do you?
No.
I didn't know what was going to happen that afternoon. You just had to cope with whatever it was.
Where were you and what were you doing the day the war ended? Like, the time the war ended, like the day.
You mean the celebrations?
Yeah, like, what were you doing?
Oh, what was I doing?
Yes.
I was lying sulking in my bed because I had the flu. I had flu. All my friends were out celebrating and I was feeling miserable and just complaining to them all for going away to leave me because I had the flu.
Like, how did you celebrate?
How did I celebrate? Well, I told you I was in bed. That's not very nice of you to remind me. But I got better from the flu. And after we got better, then we had street parties. I was just a wee girl. I had no idea that all around me was history.
Well, I would could honestly say it was pretty awful, and I hope, pray to God, that none of us ever go through that again.
Well, that's the end of our interview. Thank you so much, June and Margaret, for letting us talk to you today. It's been a real pleasure listening to your stories.
My mother
Good morning, Brian and May. I'm Rosie and I'm Ashley from Annbank Primary, and we have come to visit you today to ask some questions about what it was like during the war and the VE Day celebrations.
Firstly, thank you so much for having us, and how are you feeling today? How are you feeling today?
I would say
I'm okay, thank
You
you.
okay? How about you? How are you feeling today?
Fine, yes.
Yeah, you feeling good?
she was on.
What was it like as a child
I think the
during the
day
war?
we resisted.
Well, during the war, I wasn't a teenager.
She was born
What
I
was
was
it like?
only about
40 years young. She was younger.
something like that,
Wait,
8
what's her name?
towards 12.
Nan.
And I just went to school, and you don't realise there's a war on.
Think about it.
I do remember we had an American camp just over the hill from us, and we got to know one of the soldiers. So one of the American soldiers used to come to our house, my mum and dad's house. It's nice, yeah.
We were in Russia.
The Roman and the Roman. What's the Roman?
We had a Russian group. And we took it to go south. And you got what you?
It's a kind of weather.
Half of
Was it?
No, even half of
Sunny,
it.
rain, sun.
For food.
The Roman and the
Pretty
Roman.
good.
How did you feel when the war was happening?
I'm sorry, everything goes.
I didn't appreciate what was going on, to tell you the truth. I say I was just a kid, and
Football.
I didn't, well, I heard there's a war, but I don't know what it meant.
Okay.
Well,
Did you celebrate when the war ended?
Dancing.
just took it naturally, I think. I was cheering and nobody worked much. But it was over very quick.
It takes a while.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us, telling us all your stories. So thank you very much.
It wasn't war.